Welcome to your practice question review for the WGU Intro to Cryptography exam. Every question mirrors the real exam. We break down why the right answer works, why the others fail, and the concept connecting them. Today's Domain 1 questions on foundations of cryptography cover terminology and states of data, classical ciphers and steganography, the security services, keys, key space, and work factor, the underlying math. On our website, you'll find free exam guides and practice questions created to help you ace your D830 exam. Simply check the link in the description below to access everything you need to succeed. Head over there right now and start studying smarter, not harder, so you can walk into that exam feeling fully prepared and confident. Alright, let's jump in. Question 1. A security analyst is organizing a training glossary and needs to label the single discipline that encompasses both the design of ciphers and the effort to break them. Which term covers both halves of the field? Your options are A. Cryptography, B. Cryptanalysis, C. Cryptology, D. Steganography. Which one is it? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is C. Cryptology. C is correct because cryptology is the umbrella discipline that contains both cryptography and cryptanalysis. It is the whole coin of which making and breaking ciphers are the two sides. A is wrong because cryptography is only the building half, the science of protecting information by designing and using ciphers. It does not by itself include the breaking side. B is wrong because cryptanalysis is only the break-in half, recovering plain text or keys without authorization. It is one side of the field, not the whole. D is wrong because steganography hides the existence of a message rather than encompassing the making and breaking of ciphers. It is a separate concealment technique. Cryptology is the parent science of secret communication, and it splits cleanly into two halves that depend on each other. Cryptography, the work of building ciphers, and cryptanalysis, the work of breaking them. Cryptography is constructive, producing algorithms and protocols meant to keep a message secret. Cryptanalysis is adversarial, probing those same constructions for weaknesses. Cryptology holds both activities under one roof as two faces of a single coin. Picture a tech company shipping a messaging app. One team writes the encryption layer doing cryptography. Another team attacks that layer before release, doing cryptanalysis. The department containing both is practicing cryptology. A strong lock can't be designed without understanding how locks are picked. A weakness found by breakers becomes a design rule for builders, and a new construction becomes a fresh puzzle for breakers. That loop, repeated for decades, pushed cryptography toward the mathematical algorithms used today. Breaking a cipher is cryptanalysis, not cryptography, and the field that includes both is cryptology, not cryptography. Keeping these labels straight is the first step to speaking about the subject accurately. Question 2. A research team is split into two groups. One group designs and implements new ciphers to protect a product, while the other repeatedly attacks those ciphers to find weaknesses before release. The work performed by the first group is best described as which discipline? Your options are A. Cryptography, B. Cryptanalysis, C. Cryptology, D. Steganography. Take a second. Which answer would you pick? The correct answer is A. Cryptography. A is correct because cryptography is the science of protecting information by transforming it, which is exactly what the design and build group is doing. These are the builders of the field. B is wrong because cryptanalysis describes the second group, the breakers who attack ciphers to recover plain text or keys. It is not the building activity described. C is wrong because cryptology is the umbrella term for both groups together. not the specific activity of the first group alone. The question asks for the building discipline specifically. D is wrong because steganography conceals that a message exists at all and is unrelated to designing ciphers. Neither group is described as hiding the presence of messages. Cryptography is the science of building protections that transform readable information into something only an authorized party can recover. Anyone designing an algorithm, key schedule, or protocol is working on this constructive side, building the machinery that keeps secrets safe. The defining activity is a transformation governed by a secret value. Plain text enters a process controlled by a key and comes out as ciphertext, and only someone holding that key can run the process in reverse. Messages often travel across untrusted channels, like shared networks or outside storage services, where anyone could copy the data. Cryptography solves this by letting the secret survive the journey, because the protection travels with the message itself, not with the path it takes. Consider an engineer encrypting a column of customer records. A vetted algorithm and a protected key transform the records before they are written to disk. So a thief who steals the database files finds only ciphertext. Cryptography is set apart from cryptanalysis and mere encoding by one feature. It binds the readability of a message to possession of a secret key, and good builders design as if the attacker already knows everything but that key. Question 3. A historical messaging system replaces entire phrases such as a planned operation name with the pre-agreed substitute phrases drawn from a shared book, and it can only express ideas the book already lists. The system is best classified as which of the following? Your options are A. A cipher, because it transforms the message. B. A code, because it substitutes whole words and phrases from a code book. C. A hash, because it produces a fixed fingerprint. D. A transposition, because it rearranges letters. Before I reveal it, which one do you think is right? The correct answer is B. A code, because it substitutes whole words and phrases from a code book. B is correct because A code substitutes whole words, phrases, or concepts using a shared codebook and can only express what the codebook contains. The phrase-for-phrase substitution from a shared book is the defining trait of a code. A is wrong because a cipher operates on the fundamental units of text such as letters, bits, or blocks without regard to meaning, and it can encrypt any message. The described system works at the level of whole phrases, not fundamental units. C is wrong because a hash produces a fixed length fingerprint and is one way, not a reversible phrase substitution. The system described recovers the original meaning from a codebook, so it is not hashing. D is wrong because transposition rearranges the positions of letters while keeping them the same. The described system swaps whole phrases for other phrases, which is codebook substitution, not positional rearrangement. Secret writing has always split into two different methods, and modern cryptography keeps them carefully separate, the cipher and the code. A cipher operates on the fundamental units of a message, letters, bits, or blocks, without caring what they mean. A code works at the level of meaning, substituting whole words or phrases using a pre-arranged codebook, like replacing an operation name with the eagle has landed. Ciphers won the long competition for simple reasons. They are general purpose, driven by a key, and easy to automate at machine speed. A code, by contrast, requires a human-curated book, can't express anything outside its entries, and collapses if that book is captured. Picture two ways to conceal the same sentence. A codebook system looks up the whole sentence and swaps in a single agreed token, but only if that sentence was anticipated in advance. A cipher ignores meaning entirely and scrambles letters or bytes under a key, working on any input whatsoever. A cipher transforms the building blocks of a message and can handle anything, because it never cares what the message says. A code swaps units of meaning from a fixed book and is limited to what that book holds, which is why modern cryptography is almost entirely the study of ciphers. Question 4. An investigator finds that a suspect embedded secret instructions in the least significant bits of ordinary vacation photos so that anyone glancing at the files would never suspect a hidden message is present. The technique that conceals the very existence of the message is called what? Your options are A. Confidentiality, B. Obfuscation, C. Cryptography, D. Steganography. What's your answer? Commit to one before I continue. The correct answer is D. Steganography. D is correct because steganography hides the existence of a message by concealing it inside something innocuous, such as the low order bits of an image. The goal is that an observer does not even know a secret is there. A is wrong because confidentiality is a security service that keeps a message unreadable, not a method of hiding that a message exists. The photo case is about concealing existence, not controlling access to readable content. B is wrong because obfuscation makes something hard to understand but is not cryptographically secure and does not specifically hide that a message exists. Minified source code is the typical example, not a hidden payload in an image. C is wrong because cryptography hides the meaning of a message while the message itself is visibly present as ciphertext. Here the aim is to hide that any message exists at all, which is steganography. Steganography is the practice of hiding the very existence of a message inside something that looks completely ordinary, like a photo or audio clip. The word means covered writing, and while a scrambled message announces that a secret exists, a well-hidden message announces nothing at all. Cryptography hides meaning while leaving an obviously encrypted file plainly visible. Obfuscation just hides clarity like minified code, and steganography hides the fact that a message exists at all. Visible encryption can invite exactly the attention a sender wants to avoid, prompting inspection or getting blocked outright. The classic digital technique is least significant bit insertion. Each pixel's lowest bit contributes almost nothing to the visible color, so replacing it with a bit of the secret message changes the picture so slightly that no human eye can tell the difference. Combine both ideas. First encrypt a message so its meaning is protected, then hide that ciphertext inside an image so its existence is concealed. An insider moving a stolen design past an outbound filter can embed it in a vacation photo's low order bits, slipping through undetected because the photo looks exactly like a photo. Whenever a question emphasizes concealing that a message even exists, rather than just making it unreadable, that is the signal pointing straight to steganography. Question 5. A compliance officer is mapping where encryption applies across the organization. Files encrypted on backup tapes locked in a vault represent one category, and traffic protected by a VPN as it crosses the internet represents another. The data on the backup tapes is best described as data in which state? Your options are A. Data at rest, B. Data in transit, C. Data in use, D. Data in transformation. Pick one. Trust your gut. Here's your chance to test yourself. The correct answer is A. Data at rest. A is correct because data at rest is information stored on a disk, tape, or in the cloud, which is exactly what encrypted backup tapes in a vault represent. Full disk encryption and encrypted backups protect the state. B is wrong because data in transit is information moving across a network, protected by tools such as TLS, IPsec, and VPNs. That describes the VPN traffic, not the stored tapes. C is wrong because data in use is information being actively processed or displayed, sometimes protected by masking such as showing only the last 4 digits of a card. Stored backup tapes are not being actively processed. D is wrong because data in transformation is not one of the 3 recognized states of data that cryptography protects. The 3 states are in transit, at rest, and in use. Cryptography has to protect information no matter what state it's in, and there are 3 of them: data in transit, data at rest, and data in use. A complete security program covers all 3, not just the obvious one. Data in transit is information moving across a network protected by tools like TLS, IPsec, or a VPN tunnel. Data at rest is information sitting in storage protected by full disk encryption and encrypted backups. Data in use is information being actively processed, protected by techniques like masking. Masking is the clearest example of protecting data in use. A payment screen reveals only the last 4 digits of a card number, keeping the rest hidden even while the data is actively being shown to a support agent. Consider a customer database. While a request travels to the server, TLS protects it in transit once stored on disk. Encryption protects it at rest, and when an agent views an account, masking protects it in use. Protecting only one state leaves the others exposed. The same data needs a secure channel in transit, a secure container at rest, and careful limits when in use. A plan that covers all 3 states leaves an attacker nowhere to slip through. Question 6. An ancient Greek military unit wrapped a strip of leather around a wooden rod of a specific diameter, wrote the message along the rod, then unwound the strip so the letters appeared scrambled. The recipient needed a rod of the same diameter to read it. This device illustrates which primitive operation? Your options are A. Substitution, B. Transposition, C. Hashing, D. Polyalphabetic substitution. Which would you go with? Lock it in before the reveal. The correct answer is B. Transposition. B is correct because the Scytale rearranges the positions of letters without changing the letters themselves, which is the definition of transposition. It is the earliest well-documented transposition cipher. A is wrong because substitution replaces each letter with a different symbol, but the Scytale keeps every letter intact and only moves where each one sits. No symbol is swapped for another. C is wrong because hashing is a modern one-way function producing a fixed-length digest and did not exist in ancient Sparta. The Scytale is a reversible positional rearrangement, not a digest. D is wrong because polyalphabetic substitution uses several changing alphabets to replace letters, which is still substitution. The Scytale changes positions, not the identity of letters. More than 2,000 years ago, Sparta used one of the simplest cipher devices ever built, a strip of leather wound around a wooden rod. Writing across the coils, then unwinding the strip, turned a message into a jumble of letters. The Scytale never changes a letter into another letter. Every letter survives untouched, only its position shifts, and this operation of moving symbols without altering them is called transposition. The rod's diameter is the secret key. Winding the strip around a second rod of the same thickness realigns the letters into readable rows, while the wrong diameter produces only nonsense. Transposition is one of only 2 primitive operations behind every cipher ever made, the other being substitution, which changes symbols instead of positions. Transposition contributes diffusion, spreading the message so local patterns are smeared out. The Scytale's descendant is the permutation box inside modern block ciphers, shuffling bit positions exactly as the rod shuffled letters. But because letters are only moved, not changed, the original letter frequencies survive, letting analysts detect and unravel transposition through anagramming. Question 7. A general protects field orders by shifting every letter of the alphabet a fixed 3 positions forward, so that A becomes D and B becomes E, wrapping around at the end of the alphabet. The single value controlling this entire transformation is the shift amount. This classic method is known as which cipher? Your options are A, the visionary cipher, B, the Scytale, C, the one-time pad, D, the Caesar cipher. Don't overthink it. Which one feels right? The correct answer is D, the Caesar cipher. D is correct because the Caesar cipher shifts each letter a fixed number of places, and Julius Caesar famously used a shift of 3. The shift amount serves as the key for the whole transformation. A is wrong because the visionary cipher uses many shifts driven by a repeating keyword rather than a single fixed shift. A constant shift of 3 across the whole message is not polyalphabetic. B is wrong because the Scytale rearranges letter positions by winding parchment on a rod and does not shift letters through the alphabet. It is transposition, not a letter shift. C is wrong because the one-time pad combines the message with a truly random key as long as the message itself. A simple fixed shift of 3 is neither random nor message length, so it is not a one-time pad. 2,000 years ago, Julius Caesar protected his military messages by shifting every letter of the alphabet a fixed number of places, using a shift of 3. Each letter keeps its position but changes identity. A becomes D, B becomes E, and the wraparound continues, so X becomes A, it becomes B, and Z becomes C. Mathematically, you number the letters from 0, add the shift, and take the remainder after dividing by 26. The entire scheme depends on a single number, the shift, so there are only 25 useful shifts to try by hand. Worse, since one letter always replaces another the same way. The natural frequency of letters like E passes straight through to the ciphertext, handing over the key without any real guessing. The Caesar cipher's true importance isn't its strength, which is almost none, but its role as the ancestor of substitution itself. Its direct descendant, the substitution box in modern block ciphers, performs the same idea over bytes in a tangled, key-dependent way that no simple frequency count can crack. Question 8. Among the oldest surviving examples of concealed writing is a cuneiform tablet on which a scribe used altered symbols to hide a valuable formula for glazing pottery. Modern commentators cite this artifact as an early instance of using concealment for what purpose? Your options are A. Military battlefield signaling, B. Religious ceremony and prestige, C. Protecting a trade secret or intellectual property, D. Authenticating the identity of the sender. Got a guess? Lock it in. The correct answer is C. Protecting a trade secret or intellectual property. C is correct because the altered cuneiform hid a pottery glazing formula, a valuable trade secret, which is why it is cited as an early example of protecting intellectual property. The motive mirrors a company encrypting a proprietary design today. A is wrong because the tablet concealed a commercial formula, not orders or signals for combat. Military use of concealment is associated more with later examples such as the Scytale and Caesar. B is wrong because religious and prestige motives are associated with the earlier Egyptian hieroglyph substitution in the tomb of Khnumhotep II, not the pottery formula. The cuneiform case is about commercial value. D is wrong because authentication of a sender's identity is a modern security service tied to signatures and certificates. The ancient scribe was concealing a formula, not proving who wrote the tablet. Long before modern encryption, people concealed writing for very different reasons. Two ancient artifacts reveal motives that still drive cryptography today. The Egyptian scribe who altered hieroglyphs in Khnumhotep's tomb sought prestige and mystery, not secrecy. The Mesopotamian scribe who hid a glazing formula was protecting a valuable trade secret. Later, The Spartans and Romans used ciphers for military advantage, guarding plans whose loss could mean a lost battle. On a Mesopotamian clay tablet, a scribe swapped ordinary cuneiform symbols for unusual ones to hide a pottery glazing formula, a proprietary recipe worth protecting from rivals. The method, substitution, was the same one used for prestige and for war, but here the value being guarded was commercial. Concealment for prestige aims to impress, with secrecy as a side effect. Concealment for trade advantage denies a competitor knowledge with market value, while military concealment denies an enemy knowledge with tactical value. Whenever you see a hidden formula, recipe, design, or process, that's the signature of the intellectual property motive. From a Bronze Age glazed recipe to modern encrypted source code and product designs, the underlying reason has never changed, keeping something valuable away from the wrong eyes. Question 9. A Renaissance scholar invented a device built from two concentric lettered disks and introduced the idea of switching alphabets partway through a message, earning him the title Father of Western Cryptography. Who is being described? Your options are A. Leon Battista Alberti, B. Blaise de Virginie, C. Arthur Scherbius, D. Auguste Kerckhoffs. Which one is it? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is A. Leon Battista Alberti. A is correct because Leon Battista Alberti created the cipher disk around the year 1467 and introduced switching alphabets mid-message, which is why he is called the father of Western cryptography. The concentric lettered disks are his signature invention. B is wrong because Blaise de Virginie popularized the polyalphabetic cipher that bears his name, but he came later and is associated with a keyword-driven table rather than the cipher disk. He is not called the father of Western cryptography. C is wrong because Arthur Scherbius invented the Enigma rotor machine in the 20th century, centuries after the cipher disk. His work was electromechanical, not a manual lettered disk. D is wrong because Auguste Kerckhoffs is known for his principle that security must rest on the key, not for inventing a cipher disk. He was a 19th century linguist, not a Renaissance inventor. In Renaissance Italy around 1467, Leon Battista Alberti earned the title Father of Western Cryptography, not just for a clever device, but for an idea that broke a centuries-old weakness in secret writing. The device itself was simple: two concentric lettered disks, one fixed and one movable, joined on a shared pivot, so turning the inner ring lined up the alphabets in a new position each time. But the real breakthrough wasn't the disk. It was rotating it partway through a message, switching alphabets so the same plain text letter no longer always became the same cipher text symbol. A fixed substitution keeps the natural frequency of letters intact, which is exactly what frequency analysis exploits. But by switching alphabets, mid-message Alberti smeared that fingerprint, planting the seed of polyalphabetic substitution. That single move, changing the substitution as the work proceeds rather than holding it fixed, echoes through Trithemius's tabula recta, Virginia's keyword cipher, 20th century rotor machines, and the key schedules inside modern encryption, all tracing back to Alberti's disk. Question 10. For centuries, one manual cipher was nicknamed the indecipherable cipher because it used many different alphabets in rotation, selected by a repeating keyword, which hid the letter frequency patterns that betrayed simpler methods. This cipher is named after whom? Your options are A. Charles Wheatstone, B. Blaise de Virginie, C. Gilbert Vernon, D. Thomas Jefferson. Take a second. Which answer would you pick? The correct answer is B. Blaise de Virginie. B is correct because the Vigenère cipher is the polyalphabetic method driven by a repeating keyword and was long called the indecipherable cipher. Changing the alphabet from letter to letter is what hides the frequency fingerprint. A is wrong because Charles Wheatstone devised the Playfair cipher, which encrypts pairs of letters using a 5x5 grid. That is a different mechanism from a keyword-driven set of rotating alphabets. C is wrong because Gilbert Vernon built the XOR-based teletype cipher that became the basis of the one-time pad. His method combines the message with a key stream, not a repeating keyword, over a tabula recta. D is wrong because Thomas Jefferson designed a wheel cipher made of stacked leaded disks. That is a mechanical device, not the keyword-driven polyalphabetic table named in the question. The Vigenère cipher is the classic example of polyalphabetic substitution, using many alphabets in rotation instead of just one. For centuries it was called the indecipherable cipher because the tricks that easily broke simple substitution ciphers simply failed against it. The mechanism is driven by a keyword written repeatedly above the plaintext, letter for letter. Each plaintext letter is shifted by the keyword letter above it, and the tabula recta turns this into a simple lookup. Find the row for the keyword letter, the column for the plaintext letter, and read off the cipher text. Consider a plaintext word with the same letter twice in a row, falling under two different keyword letters. Each occurrence shifts by a different amount, so it encrypts to a different ciphertext letter, and that scattering is exactly what defeats frequency analysis. A monoalphabetic cipher uses one fixed substitution alphabet, so it preserves letter frequencies and stays fragile. A polyalphabetic cipher uses several changing alphabets, flattening those frequencies and making it far stronger. The keyword repeats at regular intervals, so the cipher is really several interleaved Caesar ciphers. Once the keyword length is found, each column falls to ordinary frequency analysis, and the indecipherable cipher's reputation did not survive that insight. Question 11. A World War II rotor machine used stepping wheels, a plugboard, and a reflector so that pressing the same key twice usually produced two different ciphertext letters. The German military adopted and heavily modified it. Who is the historically recognized inventor of this machine? Your options are A. Alan Turing, B. Marian Rejewski, C. Boris Hagelin, D. Arthur Scherbius. Before I reveal it, which one do you think is right? The correct answer is D. Arthur Scherbius. D is correct because Arthur Scherbius, a German engineer, invented the Enigma rotor machine and patented it around 1918. The German military later adopted and modified his design for the war. A is wrong because Alan Turing worked at Bletchley Park to break Enigma and helped design the bomb. He was a codebreaker attacking the machine, not its inventor. B is wrong because Marian Rejewski of the Polish Cipher Bureau achieved the first major break of military Enigma using mathematics. He reconstructed its wiring but did not build the original machine. C is wrong because Boris Hagelin was the Swedish engineer behind the M209 pin and lug machine used by the United States. That is a different device from the Enigma. Enigma is famous, but the machine itself teaches a deeper lesson about how mechanical scrambling can hide a message. Let's look at how it actually worked piece by piece. Pressing a key sent current through the plug board, through 3 rotors, into the reflector, back out along a new path, through the plug board again, and finally to a lamp. Because the rotors stepped with every press, the same key rarely lit the same lamp twice. Every day, operators set the rotor order, the ring settings, the starting positions, and the plug board wiring. Together, these choices created an enormous number of possible configurations, changed on a schedule so old settings could never decrypt new messages. The reflector made encryption reciprocal, so the same settings could both encrypt and decrypt. But it guaranteed one flaw: a letter could never be enciphered as itself. And code breakers use that single crack to rule out countless wrong settings. Keep the inventors separate from the breakers. Scherbius built Enigma. Rajewski and the code breakers at Bletchley Park were the adversaries who found its hidden weakness. Question 12. A student is matching code-breaking machines to the ciphers they attacked. One machine was an electronic, programmable computer built to break the German high-command teleprinter cipher rather than Enigma. Which machine and target pairing is correct? Your options are A. The bomb attacked the Lorenz cipher. B. The bomb attacked the Japanese purple cipher. C. Colossus attacked the Lorenz cipher. D. Colossus attacked the Enigma cipher. What's your answer? Commit to one before I continue. The correct answer is C. Colossus attacked the Lorenz cipher. C is correct because Colossus was the electronic programmable machine built to break the Lorenz teleprinter cipher used by the German High Command. It is recognized as the world's first programmable electronic digital computer. I is wrong because the bomb was electromechanical and attacked Enigma, not Lorenz. The Lorenz cipher was the target of the electronic Colossus instead. B is wrong because the bomb attacked Enigma, not the Japanese purple machine. Purple was a separate diplomatic cipher broken by other American efforts. D is wrong because Colossus attacked the Lorenz cipher, while the bomb was the machine aimed at Enigma. Pairing Colossus with Enigma reverses the correct targets. Two code-breaking machines from World War II are constantly mixed up. Let's fix their pairings for good. The bomb versus Colossus. The bomb was electromechanical, built at Bletchley Park to attack the German Enigma cipher. Colossus was electronic and programmable, built by Tommy Flowers to break Lorenz, the more advanced cipher used by the German High Command. The bomb exploited a quirk of Enigma's reflector, the fact that no letter could ever encrypt to itself, to rapidly eliminate impossible rotor settings. It built on earlier Polish work by Marian Rajewski before Bletchley Park refined it into a working search engine. Colossus used vacuum tubes instead of mechanical relays, letting it process patterns at electronic speed. Because it could be reconfigured to perform different logical operations, it's recognized as the world's first programmable electronic digital computer. The lasting lesson is that the demand to break ciphers keeps driving new computing machinery. So keep it simple. The bomb, electromechanical, hunted Enigma, while Colossus, electronic, broke Lorenz. And reversing that pairing is the classic mistake. Question 13. Despite being extraordinarily strong for its era, Enigma was broken largely because German operators sent stereotyped messages such as routine weather reports and fixed sign-offs, giving analysts guessed plaintext to test against the ciphertext. What is the most important general lesson this teaches modern cryptography? Your options are: or cryptography is usually broken through mistakes in implementation and operation, not by defeating a sound algorithm head-on. B. Longer keys are the only factor that determines real-world security. C. A secret algorithm is always stronger than a public one. D. Transposition ciphers are inherently unbreakable. Pick one. Trust your gut. Here's your chance to test yourself. The correct answer is A. Cryptography is usually broken through mistakes in implementation and operation, not by defeating a sound algorithm head-on. A is correct because Enigma fell mainly because of predictable message structure, operator shortcuts, and a structural quirk, not because its core idea was weak. The enduring lesson is that real systems are usually broken through implementation and operational mistakes. B is wrong because key length matters, but Enigma's failure came from how it was used, not from a short key. Focusing only on key length misses the operational cause of the break. C is wrong because Enigma's history actually argues against secret algorithms, since its strength did not come from secrecy of design. Modern practice favors public, scrutinized algorithms under Kerckhoffs' principle. D is wrong because transposition ciphers are not unbreakable and have nothing to do with the Enigma lesson. The point of the example is operator and implementation error, not a claim about transposition. Enigma had an enormous configuration space and, by the standards of its time, was an extraordinarily strong machine. Yet it was broken. The lesson is not about a clever algorithm, but about how strong systems actually fail, almost never through a frontal attack on sound math, but through mistakes in implementation and operation. 3 categories of mistake made Enigma vulnerable. Predictable message structure, like routine weather reports, gave codebreakers crypts, guessed plaintext for known plaintext attacks. Operator shortcuts like reuse settings and lazy key choices shrank the search space. And the reflector's quirk, never enciphering a letter as itself, let code-breaking machines instantly reject wrong candidates. The reflector's constraint was a design choice, not an operator error, but it became a powerful filter in the hands of analysts, letting code-breaking machines instantly reject impossible settings and cut the search dramatically. Modern systems absorb these lessons directly. Initialization vectors add randomness, so identical messages don't produce identical ciphertext. Keys are changed on irregular schedules instead of predictable ones. And confusion and diffusion, spread across many rounds, ensure guessable plaintext never becomes a guessable key. Strong algorithms are common. Strong operation is rare and hard. When real systems fall, it's usually a reused key or a careless habit. Bas Scytale, not a defeat of the mathematics itself. Question 14. Japan used electromechanical cipher machines built around telephone stepping relays. The later and more complex of these machines, used mainly for high-level diplomatic communications, was given a color name designation by United States analysts. Which machine was it? Your options are A. Red, B. Purple, C. Enigma, D. Lawrence. Which would you go with? Lock it in before the reveal. The correct answer is B. Purple. B is correct because purple was the later, more complex Japanese machine used primarily for high-level diplomatic traffic. United States analysts gave it that designation. A is wrong because red was the earlier Japanese diplomatic and naval machine, not the later and more advanced one. The question points to the more complex successor. C is wrong because Enigma was the German rotor machine, not a Japanese device built on stepping relays. It is not designated by a color name. D is wrong because Lawrence was the German high command teleprinter cipher attacked by Colossus. It is neither Japanese nor a color name machine. Beyond Enigma, Japan fielded its own cipher machines, and American analysts gave them color names: Red, the earlier Machina, and Purple, its more advanced successor used for high-level diplomatic traffic. Keeping that order straight is the key to avoiding the common mix-up. Red served diplomatic and naval purposes before Purple arrived as the more sophisticated machine carrying the foreign ministry's most sensitive messages. Both were electromechanical, but instead of Enigma's rotors, they used telephone stepping relays, the same switches found in automatic phone exchanges. Instead of a rotating wheel, a stepping relay advances through contact positions each time a character is entered, substituting one letter for another in a constantly changing pattern. The same core idea as a rotor, achieved with switchboard hardware instead. Placing these machines in context helps. Enigma was German and rotor-based. Lorenz was also German, a teleprinter cipher broken by Colossus, while Red and Purple were Japan's stepping relay machines. with purple carrying the advanced diplomatic line. Remember purple as later, more complex, and diplomatic, with red as the simpler predecessor, and you'll never invert them. Like Enigma, these machines seem secure to the owners, but were broken by analysts who reconstructed their logic from patterns alone. Question 15. A rotor machine wires each wheel as a scrambled substitution and steps the wheels after each letter, so the substitution constantly changes. In terms of the cipher family studied earlier, a rotor machine is essentially a high-speed mechanization of which kind of cipher? Your options are A. A transposition cipher, B. A one-time pad, C. A polyalphabetic substitution cipher, D. A monoalphabetic substitution cipher. Don't overthink it. Which one feels right? The correct answer is C. A polyalphabetic substitution cipher. C is correct because the substitution alphabet changes with every letter as the rotor step. A rotor machine mechanizes polyalphabetic substitution at high speed. It is the mechanical descendant of the visionary idea of a changing alphabet. A is wrong because a transposition cipher rearranges positions, but rotor machines substitute one letter for another. The rotors change the identity of letters, not merely their order. B is wrong because a one-time pad requires a truly random key as long as the message and used only once. A rotor machine generates a repeating deterministic sequence of alphabets, so it is not a one-time pad. D is wrong because a monoalphabetic cipher uses one fixed alphabet, but the rotor steps so the alphabet changes constantly. That constant change is precisely what makes it polyalphabetic rather than monoalphabetic. A rotor machine mechanizes polyalphabetic substitution at high speed, and the rotor itself is the key to understanding it all. The rotor is a wired wheel with contacts on both sides. Wiring inside connects each input contact to a different output, so a single rotor performs one fixed scrambled substitution. After every letter, at least one rotor steps forward like an odometer wheel, changing the electrical path and the substitution it performs. A monoalphabetic cipher uses one alphabet and leaks frequency patterns. Virginia changed alphabets with a keyword, but the rotor machine changes its alphabet mechanically after every single letter, and stacking several rotors makes that combined alphabet take an enormous number of letters to repeat. Remember, it's not transposition, since letter identities change, and not a one-time pad, since its alphabets are deterministic and eventually repeat. It's high-speed automated polyalphabetic substitution. Question 16. In the 1970s, a United States government standards body solicited a single encryption algorithm so agencies could protect sensitive but unclassified data consistently. The winning design came from an IBM cipher originally nicknamed Lucifer. What standard did this become? Your options are A. The data encryption standard, B. The advanced encryption standard, C. The one-time pad, D. The Wassenaar arrangement. Got a guess? Lock it in. The correct answer is A. The data encryption standard. A is correct because the IBM cipher derived from Horst Feistel's Lucifer design was adopted as the data encryption standard and published as a federal standard in 1977. It became mandatory for protecting sensitive, unclassified federal data. B is wrong because the advanced encryption standard came later, in 2001, and was based on the Reynel algorithm rather than Lucifer. It replaced the aging data encryption standard. C is wrong because the one-time pad is a classical XOR cipher with perfect secrecy, not a federal standard solicited from industry. It predates the 1970s standardization effort by decades. D is wrong because the Wassenaar arrangement is a multinational export control agreement, not an encryption algorithm. It governs the trade of dual-use goods, not the protection of federal data. In the early 1970s, U.S. government agencies needed a single shared way to protect sensitive data electronically. Without a common standard, every agency using its own cipher would create chaos and weak links. The National Bureau of Standards, forerunner of today's NIST, put out a public call for a cipher, IBM Submission, based on a design called Lucifer by Horst Feistel, won and became the data encryption standard in 1977. DAS worked on 64-bit blocks using a 56-bit key, repeating rounds of substitution and permutation in what's called a Feistel structure. This layered, iterated design became the template that later ciphers would follow. DES was never broken by clever mathematics. It was simply overtaken by raw computing speed. By the late 1990s, purpose-built hardware could search the entire 56-bit key space and recover a key directly. The response came in two stages, triple Ds as a stopgap, and the advanced encryption standard as the long-term replacement. Ds remains the lesson that fixed key lengths cannot outrun rising computing power forever. Question 17. After the original federal encryption standard from the 1970s became brute forcible due to its short key, a new competition selected an algorithm named Regendale to replace it. The replacement standard published in 2001 is known by which name? Your options are E. Triple Ds, B. the Vernam cipher, C. the Lucifer cipher, D. the Advanced Encryption Standard. Which one is it? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is D. The Advanced Encryption Standard. D is correct because the Rendale algorithm was selected and published in 2001 as the Advanced Encryption Standard. It superseded the Data Encryption Standard and its short 56-bit key. A is wrong because triple DES was an interim strengthening of the old Data Encryption Standard that applied it 3 times, not the new Rendale-based standard. It was a bridge, not the algorithm named Rendale. B is wrong because the Vernam cipher is the early XOR teletype cipher behind the one-time pad. It is unrelated to the 2001 competition that selected Rendale. C is wrong because Lucifer was the original IBM design that became the data encryption standard, not its replacement. The replacement chosen in 2001 was Rendale. The Advanced Encryption Standard, or AS, replaced the aging data encryption standard once its 56-bit key became brute forcible and triple DES proved too slow to last. A genuinely new standard was needed with a bigger key and a fresh design. Rather than being designed in secret, AES was chosen through an open competition. Cryptographers from around the world submitted candidates, which were studied and attacked publicly for years, until Rendale, designed by 2 Belgian cryptographers, won and was published as AES in 2001. Structurally, ES is a substitution permutation network. Each round applies a substitution layer through lookup tables, then a permutation layer that shuffles and mixes the data, all controlled by round keys from a key schedule. Repeating this many times produces strong confusion and diffusion. A supports key sizes of 128, 192, and 256 bits, each far too vast to brute force, with a fixed block size of 128 bits. This gives comfortable security margins while staying fast enough for everything from servers to small devices. AES powers secure web sessions, full disk encryption, and messaging apps as the quiet workhorse of digital security. Its open selection process proves the field's core lesson. Real strength comes from surviving public scrutiny, not from hiding the design. Question 18. Until the mid-1970s, Every cipher used the same secret key to encrypt and decrypt, which created an enormous key distribution problem. In 1976, a landmark paper introduced the idea of a mathematically linked key pair, where one key encrypts and the other decrypts. Which pair of researchers is credited with this breakthrough? Your options are A. Rivest and Shamir, B. Diffie and Hellman, C. Turing and Flowers, D. Scherbius and Hagelin. Take a second. Which answer would you pick? The correct answer is B. Diffie and Hellman. B is correct because Whitfield Diffie and Martin Hellman published new directions in cryptography in 1976, introducing asymmetric public key cryptography. They are widely called the fathers of asymmetric cryptography. A is wrong because Ron Rivest and Adi Shamir, with Leonard Adleman, turned the public key idea into the practical RSA algorithm in 1977. They built on the concept rather than first introducing it. C is wrong because Alan Turing and Tommy Flowers were World War II codebreakers associated with the bomb and Colossus. They were not the authors of the public key concept. D is wrong because Arthur Scherbius and Boris Hagelin were inventors of rotor and pin and lug cipher machines. Their work predates and is unrelated to public key cryptography. For centuries, every cipher relied on one hidden assumption. The same secret key that encrypted a message also decrypted it. This is symmetric cryptography, and it hides a stubborn flaw. Before two strangers can communicate securely, they must first share a secret key. But sharing that secret over an insecure channel is the very problem encryption was invented to solve. And as a group grows, the number of keys needed explodes. In 1976, Whitfield Diffie and Martin Hellman published new directions in cryptography, introducing asymmetric or public key cryptography. Each party holds a linked pair of keys, a public key anyone can see, and a private key kept secret, where what one key does, only the other can undo. Anyone can use a published public key to encrypt a message, but only the holder of the matching private key can decrypt it. No shared secret ever needs to travel across the open channel. This same idea gave rise to digital signatures and non-repudiation, since only one person holds the private key. Nearly every secure system today pairs the two families: public key cryptography to solve distribution and authentication, and symmetric cryptography for fast bulk encryption. Question 19. 1 year after the public key concept was published, 3 researchers turned the idea into a practical algorithm that enabled digital signatures and secure key exchange, and the algorithm carries their initials. Which algorithm is this? Your options are A. Irasa, B. AES, C. DES, D. PGP. Before I reveal it, which one do you think is right? The correct answer is A. RSA. A is correct because in 1977, Ron Rivest, Adi Shamir, and Leonard Adleman created RSA, whose name comes from their initials. It made public key cryptography practical for signatures and key exchange. B is wrong because AES is the symmetric advanced encryption standard based on Rindell, used for bulk data, not a public key algorithm named after 3 researchers. It does not provide signatures by itself. C is wrong because DES is the symmetric data encryption standard from the 1970s and uses a single shared key. It is not the asymmetric algorithm built on the new public key idea. D is wrong because PGP is an email and file encryption program created by Phil Zimmermann, not the public key algorithm invented in 1977. PGP actually uses algorithms such as RSA inside it. In 1976, Diffie and Hellman introduced the idea of public key cryptography. In 1977, Rivest, Shamir, and Adelman turned that idea into a working algorithm, say, named after their initials. RSA's security comes from factoring. Multiplying two large prime numbers is fast, but recovering those primes from their product is enormously difficult. The public and private keys are built so that breaking one means solving that hard factoring problem. Two large primes are multiplied to create the number underlying the key pair. The public key and private key are mathematically linked through this product. So recovering the private key requires factoring it back into those original primes. Because factoring is so much harder than brute force, RSA keys must be far longer than symmetric keys for equal strength. But RSA delivered the full promise of public key cryptography, secure key exchange, digital signatures, authentication, and non-repudiation, the foundations of secure web connections and software signing today. Question 20. A course warns students not to confuse two ideas that sound similar. One is a powerful new kind of computer that threatens current public key algorithms, and the other uses the physics of particles such as photons over fiber to distribute keys. Which statement correctly captures the distinction? Your options are A. They are the same thing described with two names. B. Quantum cryptography is a type of computer, while quantum computing distributes keys. C. Quantum computing is a new kind of computer, while quantum cryptography uses physics to distribute keys. D. Both terms refer only to post-quantum algorithms running on ordinary computers. What's your answer? Commit to one before I continue. The correct answer is C. Quantum computing is a new kind of computer, while quantum cryptography uses physics to distribute keys. C is correct because quantum computing is a powerful new kind of computer that threatens current public key algorithms, while quantum cryptography uses quantum physics, such as photons over fiber, to distribute keys. The course stresses that these are different things. A is wrong because the two terms are explicitly distinguished and are not the same thing. Treating them as identical is exactly the confusion the course warns against. B is wrong because this reverses the two definitions. Quantum computing is the computer, and quantum cryptography is the physics-based key distribution, not the other way around. D is wrong because post-quantum algorithms are classical algorithms designed to resist quantum attacks, which is a separate idea from both terms in the question. Neither term refers only to post-quantum algorithms on ordinary computers. These terms sound alike but describe very different things, and mixing them up is a common mistake. Quantum computing is a machine. Quantum cryptography is a method. Let's untangle them. Quantum computing is a powerful new machine that threatens today's public key algorithms by solving problems like factoring and discrete logarithms exponentially faster. Quantum cryptography uses quantum physics, usually photons, to distribute keys securely. Post-quantum cryptography is ordinary math run on classical computers designed to resist quantum attacks. In quantum key distribution, two parties exchange keys encoded on individual photons sent over fiber. A basic law of quantum physics means any attempt to measure those photons disturbs them, so an eavesdropper's intrusion becomes detectable, letting the parties discard a compromised key. Quantum computing operates on computation, offering raw power that endangers current public key math. Quantum cryptography operates on communication, using physics instead of math difficulty to protect a key exchange. Post-quantum cryptography hardens classical math itself against future quantum attack. Quantum computing is the threat. Quantum key distribution and post-quantum cryptography are two separate defenses, one physical and one mathematical. Knowing which idea is in play is essential for protecting data for decades to come. Question 21. In a modern crypto system, the algorithm is public and widely published, yet the system stays secure. According to the field's core vocabulary, what is the one element that must be kept secret to protect the transformation? Your options are A. The ciphertext, B. The key, C. The algorithm, D. The initialization vector. Pick one. Trust your gut. Here's your chance to test yourself. The correct answer is B. The key. B is correct because the key, also called the crypto variable, is the secret value that combines with the algorithm to control the transformation, and it is the one thing that must stay secret. This follows directly from Kerckhoffs' principle. A is wrong, because the ciphertext is the protected output that travels over insecure channels and is expected to be exposed to attackers. Its exposure is assumed, so it is not the secret that protects the system. C is wrong because the algorithm in modern cryptography is deliberately public, so it can be scrutinized for flaws. Keeping it secret is not what provides security. D is wrong because the initialization vector is not secret and is shared with the receiver in the clear. It breaks up patterns but is not the protected secret of the system. In any crypto system, the key is the single most important secret. It's the value that combines with a public algorithm to control exactly how a message gets transformed, and changing it changes everything. The algorithm is the general procedure, public and identical for everyone. The key is the secret variable that makes your encryption different from anyone else's. An attacker is assumed to know the algorithm completely, so the only thing standing between them and your message is the key. Think of a password. The login procedure is public and identical for every user, but the password itself is the private value that distinguishes one account from another. Anyone who learns it can act as that person, which is why the secret value, not the procedure, must be guarded. This principle takes different shapes across cryptography's families. In symmetric cryptography, one shared key both encrypts and decrypts, so both parties must protect that single value. In asymmetric cryptography, a private key stays with one person while its paired public key is deliberately shared. A longer key means a larger key space and an exponentially harder brute force attack, which is why key length is the go-to measure of strength. Remember, the algorithm can be public, but the moment the key leaks, the whole system falls apart. Question 22. A bank uses 4-digit numeric personal identification numbers. A security trainer wants to show how much harder guessing becomes if the bank moves to 6-digit numbers. By what factor does the total number of possible numeric combinations grow when moving from 4 digits to 6? Your options are A. It doubles, B. It grows by 10 times, C. It grows by 50 times, D. It grows by 100 times. Which would you go with? Lock it in before the reveal. The correct answer is D. It grows by 100 times. D is correct because a 4-digit numeric space holds 10,000 combinations, and a 6-digit space holds 1 million, which is 100 times larger. Each added digit multiplies the space by 10, and 2 added digits multiplied by 100. A is wrong because doubling would apply to adding a single bit, not 2 decimal digits. 2 decimal digits multiply the space by 100, far more than double. B is wrong because growing by 10 times corresponds to adding only 1 digit. Moving from 4 digits to 6 adds 2 digits, so the growth is 10 times 10. C is wrong because 50 times is not how decimal place value works. 2 added decimal digits multiply the count by 10 twice, giving 100, not 50. The key space of an algorithm is the complete set of all possible keys, and its size is the single most important measure of resistance to brute force attack. The larger the key space, the more guesses an attacker must make before stumbling onto the right one. A 4-digit bank PIN has 10 choices per position, giving 10,000 total possibilities. Add a fifth digit and the space jumps to 100,000. Add a sixth and it reaches 1 million, each new digit multiplying the space by 10. Cryptographic keys are measured in bits, and each extra bit doubles the key space rather than multiplying it by 10. Even so, small additions in length create enormous increases in the work an attacker must perform. A short pin's 10,000 codes are no match for a patient attacker unless something else intervenes, a lockout threshold, which locks the account after a few wrong guesses. Key space defines the size of the haystack, while a lockout denies the time needed to search it, and strong systems use whichever fits, sometimes both. So keep the two defenses distinct. A large key space defeats brute force by sheer numbers offline, while a lockout threshold defeats brute force by denying repeated attempts live. Question 23. Because many customers necessarily share the same short numeric code, an attacker who finds a card might try to guess it by entering many codes in a row. What operational control most directly stops this guessing by locking the account after a few wrong tries? Your options are A clipping level, also called a lockout threshold. B, a longer encryption key. C, an initialization vector. D, a digital signature. Don't overthink it. Which one feels right? The correct answer is A, a clipping level, also called a lockout threshold. A is correct because a clipping level, or lockout threshold, locks the account after a small number of failed attempts and so stops an attacker from trying thousands of codes. It is what separates honest human error from a brute force attack. B is wrong because a longer encryption key increases brute force difficulty against ciphertext, but does nothing to limit repeated guesses at a login prompt. The defense here is limiting attempts, not lengthening a key. C is wrong because an initialization vector breaks up patterns in encrypted data and has no role in counting failed login attempts. It does not lock an account. D is wrong because a digital signature provides authentication and non-repudiation, not a limit on guessing attempts. It would not stop someone from repeatedly entering codes. A clipping level, or lockout threshold, is a policy that limits how many failed attempts a system will tolerate before it locks an account. It isn't math or a property of a cipher, it's an operational control enforced by the system itself. The need for this control comes from the weakness of short secrets, like a 4-digit payment code. With only 10,000 possibilities, a machine could eventually guess it just by trying enough times. So the defense has to come from somewhere other than the secret size. A debit card has 10,000 possible codes, and the thief who steals it knows none of them. The bank allows only 3 wrong entries before the card is frozen, so the thief's chances shrink to nearly nothing. The secret stayed small, but the attempts were squeezed down to almost 0. The clipping level also separates honest mistakes from deliberate attacks. Since a real user might mistype once or twice but won't enter dozens of wrong codes in a row, setting the threshold too low frustrates legitimate users, while setting it too high hands attackers more chances than the secret can safely allow. The idea to remember is that some defenses live in mathematics and others live in policy. A clipping level doesn't make a secret larger or stronger. It simply refuses to let an attacker take the many attempts that guessing would require. Question 24. A manager reads that a chosen cipher has a very high work factor and assumes this means the system will be slow for employees to use day to day. Why is this assumption incorrect? Your options are: A. Work factor measures the storage needed for keys. B. Work factor measures how many rounds a cipher uses. Work factor measures the effort an attacker needs to break the protection, not the cost of legitimate use. D. Work factor measures the length of the ciphertext. Got a guess? Lock it in. The correct answer is C. Work factor measures the effort an attacker needs to break the protection, not the cost of legitimate use. C is correct because work factor is the time, money, and computing resources an unauthorized party needs to break the protection, such as brute forcing the key. It is not a measure of how long legitimate encryption or decryption takes. A is wrong because work factor is about an attacker's effort to break the system, not about how much storage keys occupy. Key storage is a separate engineering concern. B is wrong because the number of rounds is an internal design detail of a cipher, not the definition of work factor. Work factor describes the difficulty faced by an attacker. D is wrong because cipher text length is unrelated to work factor. Work factor quantifies the effort to break the protection regardless of how long the output is. Work factor measures how much time, money, and computing power an attacker must spend to break a protection without the key. It answers one question: how hard is it to defeat the system illegitimately? A common mistake is confusing work factor with how long it takes an authorized user to encrypt or decrypt. A cipher can be lightning fast for everyday use while still being astronomically expensive to attack. Picture an attacker forced to brute force a key. The work factor is roughly the number of keys that must be tried, multiplied by the cost of trying each one. If that total exceeds practical limits, the protection effectively holds. Work factor must be chosen against the lifetime of the secret. Because computation gets cheaper and faster over time, a work factor that looks strong today may erode. Archived records needing 25 years of confidentiality must be designed against tomorrow's far more powerful computers, not today's. Work factor measures the attacker's burden, not the user's convenience, and it must always be judged against the future. A sound design keeps that burden infeasible for the entire sensitive life of the data, with margin for computing steady advance. Question 25. A study guide notes that a 3072-bit RSA key provides only about 128 bits of security, far less than its key length suggests. Why is the security level so much smaller than the key length for an asymmetric algorithm? Your options are A, because asymmetric keys are stored in hexadecimal, B, because better than brute force mathematical attacks such as factoring exist against asymmetric algorithms, C, because the key is reused many times, D, because asymmetric algorithms have no key space. Which one is it? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is B, because better than brute force mathematical attacks such as factoring exist against asymmetric algorithms. B is correct because asymmetric algorithms face mathematical shortcuts such as integer factoring that are far faster than trying every key, so their security level falls well below the key length. That is why asymmetric keys must be much longer than symmetric keys for equivalent strength. A is wrong because how a key is displayed, such as in hexadecimal, has no effect on its security level. The gap comes from mathematical attacks, not representation. C is wrong because reuse is not the reason for the gap, and the security level reflects the best known attack regardless of reuse. The factoring shortcut is the cause. D is wrong because asymmetric algorithms do have a key space, but specialized math attacks make brute force irrelevant. The shortfall is due to those attacks, not a missing key space. The security level of a cipher, or its bits of security, measures how much work an attacker must do to break it, expressed as a power of 2. 128 bits of security means the best attack needs roughly 2 to the 128th operations. A workload no ordinary computer could finish before the universe grows cold. Stating strength in bits is convenient because it turns a giant number into a small, comparable figure. Each additional bit of security doubles the attacker's workload, so a jump from 112 to 128 bits is actually a 16-fold increase. even though the numbers look close. Key length and security level are not always the same. A symmetric cipher has no shortcut faster than brute force, so a 128-bit key gives roughly 128 bits of security. But asymmetric algorithms like RSA rely on problems such as factoring, which have faster shortcuts. So a 3072-bit RSA key only provides about 128 bits of security. The field uses rough thresholds to guide choices. 112 bits is the minimum acceptable today. 128 bits is the comfortable standard. And 192 to 256 bits guard decades-long secrets against future threats like quantum computing. Think in bits of security rather than raw key length whenever strength is at issue. Two systems with the same security level are roughly equally hard to break, whether one uses a short symmetric key or a much longer asymmetric one. Question 26. A developer notes that a particular binary operation returns 0 when two input bits are the same and 1 when they differ, and that applying it twice with the same value returns the original data. Which operation has these properties and is often called its own inverse? Your options are logical and B, logical OR, C, bit shifting, D, exclusive OR written as XOR. Take a second. Which answer would you pick? The correct answer is D, exclusive OR written as XOR. D is correct because exclusive OR returns 0 for equal bits and 1 for differing bits, and applying it twice with the same key returns the original, making it its own inverse. It is also the fastest operation a computer can perform and underlies stream ciphers and IV mixing. Is wrong because logical and returns 1 only when both bits are 1 and is not its own inverse. Repeating and does not recover the original input. B is wrong because logical OR returns 1 when either bit is 1 and cannot be undone by reapplying it. It is not self-inverse the way exclusive OR is. C is wrong because bit shifting moves bits left or right and discards or pads positions, which is not a comparison of two bits and is not self-inverse. It does not match the described behavior. The exclusive or operation XOR is the simplest and most important building block in cryptography. It compares two bits. If they're the same, the result is 0. If they differ, the result is 1. Sameness produces 0 and difference produces 1. That's the entire rule behind every use of XOR in cryptography. XOR's magic is that it reverses itself. Combine plain text with a key bit to get ciphertext. Then combine that ciphertext with the same key bit again, and the original plain text comes right back. This self-reversing behavior powers stream ciphers. The sender XORs plain text with a key stream to get ciphertext, and the receiver XORs that ciphertext with the identical key stream to recover the plain text, using the same operation both ways. XOR is prized for 3 reasons. It's perfectly reversible, it's the fastest operation a processor can perform, and it never changes the size of the data. That's why it's used everywhere, from stream ciphers to mixing and initialization vectors, always paired with an unpredictable key to actually provide security. Question 27. To prevent encrypting the same message twice from producing identical ciphertext, a random value is mixed into the first block before encryption. Which statement about this initialization vector is correct? Your options are A. It is not secret, but it must be shared with the receiver and must not repeat. B. It must be kept as secret as the key itself. C. It must always be encrypted before sending. D. It must be longer than the encryption key. Before I reveal it, which one do you think is right? The correct answer is A. It is not secret, but it must be shared with the receiver and must not repeat. A is correct because the initialization vector is essentially random and not secret, yet the receiver needs it to reverse the process. So it must be shared and must be unique per message. Reusing it reintroduces the patterns it was meant to destroy. B is wrong because the initialization vector does not need the protection of the key and is openly shared. Treating it as a secret misunderstands its role. C is wrong because the initialization vector does not need to be encrypted. It can travel in the clear alongside the message. Encryption of the value is unnecessary. D is wrong because there is no requirement that the initialization vector exceed the key length. Its job is to be unique and unpredictable for each message, not to be longer than the key. An initialization vector, or IV, is a value mixed into encryption, so the same plain text never produces the same ciphertext twice. Without it, repeated or similarly starting messages would encrypt to recognizable patterns, and the patterns are exactly what a cryptanalyst hunts for. The IV is mixed into the very first block of data, and thanks to how modern encryption modes chain blocks together, that first small change cascades into a completely different ciphertext across the entire message. 4 facts describe an IV completely. It does not need to be secret, and it does not need to be encrypted, since an attacker gains nothing from seeing it, but it must be unique, never repeating under the same key, and it must be transmitted openly alongside the ciphertext so the receiver can reverse the process. Here's the mechanism. The IV combines with the first plain text block to produce the first ciphertext block, and that output feeds forward into encrypting the next block, chaining the IV's influence through the whole message. Picture a system sending repeated all-clear messages without an IV. Everyone looks identical to an eavesdropper, but with a fresh IV each time. They look completely unrelated. That's the whole point of the initialization vector. Question 28. A protocol displays keys in hexadecimal because long binary strings are hard to read. If one hexadecimal digit maps to exactly 4 bits, how many bits does a pair of hexadecimal digits represent? Your options are A. 2 bits, B. 4 bits, C. 8 bits, D. 16 bits. What's your answer? Commit to one before I continue. The correct answer is C. 8 bits. C is correct because one hexadecimal digit equals 4 bits. So 2 hexadecimal digits equal 8 bits, which is exactly 1 byte. This tidy mapping is why keys, hashes, and ciphertext are usually shown in hexadecimal. A is wrong because 2 bits is far too few. A single hexadecimal digit already covers 4 bits. 2 digits double that to 8. B is wrong because 4 bits is the value of a single hexadecimal digit, not a pair. A pair represents twice as many bits. D is wrong because 16 bits would be 4 hexadecimal digits, not 2. 2 hexadecimal digits represent 8 bits. Modern cryptography works on bits and bytes, not letters. So a little number system fluency goes a long way in understanding how ciphers handle data. The smallest unit is the bit, either 0 or 1. 8 bits form a byte, which can hold 256 distinct values. 4 bits, half a byte, is called a nibble, and it maps neatly to 1 hexadecimal digit. Take the binary pattern with 1s in the 64 and 1 positions. That's 64 plus 1, or 65 in decimal. Split into 2 nibbles, it becomes the hexadecimal pair 41. And in ASCII, that same byte is the letter A. 1 byte, 4 ways of writing the same thing. Long strings of zeros and ones are hard to read, so cryptographers write binary in hexadecimal instead, using digits 0 through 9 and letters A through F. 1 hex digit equals 4 bits, and 2 hex digits equal 1 byte, which is why keys, hashes, and ciphertext are almost always shown in hex. A 256-bit key is just 32 bytes, and a 64-character hex hash is exactly 256 bits. Once you see bits, bytes, hex, and character encodings as the same data in different clothes, cryptographic specifications stop being jargon and start making sense. Question 29. A new analyst claims that converting text to base 64 protects it because the output looks scrambled. Why is this claim wrong from a cryptographic standpoint? Your options are: A. Base 64 is a hashing function that destroys the data. B. Encoding such as base 64 needs no key and provides no secrecy, so anyone who knows the scheme can reverse it. C. Base 64 is a symmetric cipher with a hidden key. D. Base 64 provides confidentiality but not integrity. Pick one. Trust your gut. Here's your chance to test yourself. The correct answer is B. Encoding such as base 64 needs no key and provides no secrecy, so anyone who knows the scheme can reverse it. B is correct because encoding changes the representation of data and requires no key, so anyone who knows the scheme can reverse it, which means it provides no secrecy. Encoding is therefore not encryption. A is wrong because base 64 is not a hashing function and does not destroy data. It is fully reversible. Hashing is one way, which base 64 is not. C is wrong because base 64 has no key at all, hidden or otherwise, so it is not a cipher. Without a secret key, there is no cryptographic protection. D is wrong because base 64 provides neither confidentiality nor integrity, because it is only a representation change. Calling it confidential misstates what encoding does. It's easy to confuse encoding and encryption since both can make data look scrambled, but they serve completely different purposes and mixing them up can be a dangerous mistake. Encoding simply changes data from one format to another for compatibility or transport, like turning bytes into printable text. It requires no key, so anyone who knows the scheme can reverse it instantly, meaning it offers no protection at all. Encryption, by contrast, is built entirely around a secret key. Without that key, the ciphertext stays meaningless, even to someone who fully understands the algorithm, because readability depends on possessing the secret, not just knowing the method. Imagine an attacker who steals encoded records. They simply apply the well-known decoding step and read everything in plain form. But if those records were encrypted under a protected key, that same attacker would only find unreadable ciphertext, stopped cold without the secret. Encoding changes form but needs no key, so it offers no secrecy. Encryption depends on a secret key, and that dependence is the entire source of real protection. Question 30. The Caesar cipher wraps around the end of the alphabet, so shifting the letter Z forward returns to the start. This wrapping behavior, where values reset after reaching a fixed point much like hours on a clock, is an example of which mathematical idea? Your options are: A. Binary addition, B. Frequency analysis, C. Exclusive OR, D. Modular arithmetic. Which would you go with? Lock it in before the reveal. The correct answer is D. Modular arithmetic. D is correct because modular arithmetic takes the remainder after division, so values wrap around at a fixed point, just as a clock resets after 12. The Caesar cipher computes the shifted letter using arithmetic modulo 26. A is wrong because binary addition operates on bits and does not by itself describe wrapping around an alphabet of 26 letters. The wrap is captured by the modulo operation. B is wrong because frequency analysis is an attack on substitution ciphers, not a description of arithmetic wrapping. It has nothing to do with the clock analogy. C is wrong because exclusive OR is a bitwise operation, not the remainder-based wrapping described. The Caesar wrap is modular arithmetic, not XOR. Modular arithmetic is arithmetic that wraps around after reaching a fixed value, and it sits at the core of a huge amount of cryptography. The everyday model is a clock. Counting 4 hours past 10 o'clock doesn't give 14 o'clock. It gives 2 because the count wraps back to the start once it passes 12. The modulo operation gives the remainder after division. 12 modulo 12 is 0. 13 modulo 12 is 1. 14 modulo 12 is 2. And every result stays between 0 and 1 less than the modulus. A shift cipher wraps letters modulo 26 the same way a clock wraps hours. Modulo 12 and byte cycle modulo 256. The same wrapping scales up into the engine of public key systems like RSA and Diffie-Hellman, where the difficulty of reversing modular operations is what keeps them secure. Ordinary addition of 3 to 25 gives 28 and keeps growing, but addition modulo 26 gives 2, trapped inside a fixed circle. That bounded wrapping behavior is the clock trick that powers cryptography everywhere. Question 31. A company encrypts a sensitive design file so that an attacker who steals the file sees only unreadable ciphertext. Which security service is this protection primarily providing? Your options are A. Non-Repudiation, B. Availability, C. Confidentiality, D. Integrity. Don't overthink it. Which one feels right? The correct answer is C. Confidentiality. C is correct because confidentiality ensures information is readable only by authorized parties and prevents disclosure, which is exactly what encrypting the design file accomplishes. The thief sees ciphertext rather than the protected content. A is wrong because non-repudiation prevents a party from denying an action and relies on digital signatures, not on hiding file contents. Encrypting for secrecy is not about proving who did something. B is wrong because availability ensures data is accessible when needed and is not primarily a cryptographic service. In fact, a lost key can harm availability rather than provide it. D is wrong because integrity ensures data has not been altered and is provided by hashing or message authentication codes. Encrypting for secrecy addresses readability, not tamper detection. Confidentiality is the oldest goal in cryptography, and it means ensuring information can be read only by authorized parties. The word itself comes from the Greek root for hidden, the same root behind the word cryptography. Encryption is the tool that delivers confidentiality. It transforms information into ciphertext that reveals nothing without the key. An attacker who steals the file holds only meaningless data, because the protection travels with the data itself, not with the walls around it. This protection applies wherever data lives. Data in transit across a network is protected by encrypted traffic, so an eavesdropper sees only ciphertext, and data at rest on a disk is protected by storage encryption, so a thief who steals the drive finds nothing readable. In practice, two families of cryptography work together. Symmetric ciphers like AES do the heavy lifting, encrypting bulk data quickly under a shared key, while asymmetric ciphers like RSA play a supporting role, protecting that shared key so it can reach the right party safely. Confidentiality is not integrity. A message can be perfectly confidential yet still altered in transit, or fully readable yet protected against tampering. Confidentiality only answers whether an unauthorized party can read the data, nothing more. Question 32. A vendor publishes a software patch in the clear so anyone can read it, but attaches a value that lets recipients detect even a single changed bit. Which security service does this added value provide? Your options are A. Integrity, B. Confidentiality, C. Availability, D. Access control. Got a guess? Lock it in. The correct answer is A. Integrity. A is correct because integrity ensures information has not been altered and lets the receiver detect any change, even one flipped bit, which is the purpose of the attached value. Hash functions and message authentication codes provide this service. B is wrong because confidentiality would hide the patch's contents, but the patch is deliberately readable. The added value detects tampering rather than concealing the file. C is wrong because availability concerns whether data is accessible and is not what a tamper detection value provides. The mechanism here is about detecting change, not ensuring access. D is wrong because access control restricts who can reach a system or data, which is not what a tamper detection value does. Anyone can read this patch. The value only reveals alteration. Integrity is the security service that assures information hasn't been altered, whether by accident or by tampering, while in transit or storage. Where confidentiality asks who can read data, integrity asks whether the data is still exactly what it was. The tools that provide integrity are hash functions and message authentication codes. A hash function takes any input and produces a short fixed-length digest, and even a single flipped bit produces a completely different result. A MAC mixes a secret key into that computation, so only someone holding the key can produce a valid code, adding authentication of the source. A signed software patch is the classic illustration. Anyone can read the patch in full. Because it is not encrypted, yet a verification value attached to it lets every recipient confirm that not a single byte changed since the vendor produced it. Encryption scrambles data so an outsider can't read it, but that alone doesn't prove the data wasn't swapped or corrupted. Integrity mechanisms leave data readable and focus entirely on revealing tampering, which is why real systems typically encrypt for confidentiality and attach an integrity value to detect change. Integrity is provided by hashing and MACs, not encryption, and it answers a different question than confidentiality. Protecting the secrecy of data does nothing to protect it from being changed, so a complete design provides both deliberately. Question 33. A browser receives a certificate proving that the website it connected to genuinely belongs to the user's bank and is not an imposter. Which specific form of authentication is being provided? Your options are A. Message authentication, proving where a message came from. B. Non-repudiation of a transaction. C. Integrity of the page content. D. Entity authentication, proving the identity of the party communicated with. Which one is it? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is D. Entity authentication, proving the identity of the party communicated with. D is correct because entity authentication, also called peer authentication, proves the identity of the party you are communicating with, which is what a website certificate establishes. It confirms the server really is the bank. A is wrong because message authentication proves the origin of a particular message, not the identity of the connected entity. The certificate is vouching for the server's identity, which is the entity form. B is wrong because non-repudiation prevents denial of an action and is tied to digital signatures on specific actions, not to confirming a website's identity during connection. That is a different service. C is wrong because integrity concerns whether content was altered, not whether the server is who it claims to be. The certificate's job here is identity, not tamper detection. Authentication verifies identity, but it actually comes in two forms that are easy to blur together. One confirms who you're talking to, and the other confirms where a message came from. Entity authentication, also called peer authentication, proves who a party is on a live connection, like a bank server proving it's really the bank. Message authentication, also called data origin authentication, proves that a specific message truly came from its claimed sender, not a forger. Picture logging into an online bank. First, the browser checks the bank certificate to confirm the server's identity. That's entity authentication protecting you from a fake site. Later, the bank verifies a signed instruction really came from you. That's message authentication, protecting the bank from forged requests. Entity authentication relies on certificates and public key infrastructure. Message authentication relies on message authentication codes, which use a shared secret key, or digital signatures, which use a private key anyone can verify. Remember, authentication is distinct from confidentiality, though it often travels alongside integrity. Keep these separate. Entity authentication proves who a party is. Message authentication proves where a message came from, and neither one alone guarantees confidentiality. Question 34. A dispute arises over who sent an electronic contract. The system must prevent the sender from credibly denying that they produced it. Which cryptographic mechanism provides this non-repudiation, and why can symmetric encryption not provide it? Your options are A. A shared secret key because both parties trust each other. B. A digital signature because only the sender holds the private key used to create it. C. An initialization vector because it is unique per message. D. A hash alone because it is one way. Take a second. Which answer would you pick? The correct answer is B. A digital signature because only the sender holds the private key used to create it. B is correct because a digital signature is made with the sender's private key, which only the sender holds. So a signature that verifies with their public key proves they produced it and cannot deny it. Symmetric encryption uses a shared key, so either party could have produced the value, leaving no proof of which one did. A is wrong because a shared secret key is held by both parties, so neither can prove the other produced a value, which is precisely why symmetric crypto cannot give non-repudiation. Trust between parties is not a cryptographic proof. C is wrong because an initialization vector only breaks up patterns and proves nothing about who created a message. It plays no role in non-repudiation. D is wrong because a bare hash provides integrity but not proof of origin, because anyone can compute the same hash. Without a private key binding the action to one person, it cannot give non-repudiation. Non-repudiation means a person cannot credibly deny an action they actually took, like sending a message or signing a contract. It's essential in electronic commerce where commitments must be provably binding. Digital signatures provide non-repudiation because of how asymmetric cryptography works. Each party has a private key that only they possess, paired with a public key anyone can use to verify a signature made with that private key. When a signature verifies correctly against the public key, it proves the private key holder, and no one else, produced it. That cryptographic proof is what makes the action impossible to honestly deny. Symmetric cryptography fails here because the key is shared between two parties, so either one could have produced a given value. If one denies creating a message, there's no way to prove which party actually did it. Non-repudiation demands a secret exactly one person holds, and only a private key satisfies that. Digital signatures deliver it, while shared key methods never can. Question 35. A security manager lists the services cryptography inherently provides. One item does not belong because cryptography does not inherently guarantee it, and in fact a lost key can destroy it, which is how ransomware causes harm. Which service should be removed from the list? Your options are A. Confidentiality, B. Integrity, C. Availability, D. Non-repudiation. Before I reveal it, which one do you think is right? The correct answer is C. Availability. C is correct because availability is not primarily a cryptographic service, and encryption can even harm it, since a lost key makes data unavailable, which is exactly what ransomware weaponizes. Cryptography serves confidentiality and integrity, and through signatures, authentication, and non-repudiation. A is wrong because confidentiality is a core cryptographic service provided by encryption. It belongs on the list. B is wrong because integrity is a core cryptographic service provided by hashing and message authentication codes. It belongs on the list. D is wrong because non-repudiation is provided by digital signatures and is a recognized cryptographic service. It belongs on the list. A common mistake is assuming cryptography provides availability, the assurance that data is accessible when needed. It doesn't, and understanding why reveals something important about the limits of encryption. The three pillars of information security are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Cryptography directly serves confidentiality through encryption and integrity through hashing. And via digital signatures, it adds authentication and non-repudiation. Availability, though, comes from entirely different tools: redundancy, backups, failover systems, and defenses against denial of service attacks. Encryption ties readability to a single key. If that key is lost or destroyed, the data becomes permanently unreadable, even to its owner. The very mechanism that protects secrecy can destroy access. Ransomware weaponizes exactly this double edge. An attacker encrypts a victim's files with a key they control, making the data unavailable rather than stolen, then demands payment for the key that would restore access. So, when a scenario asks which goal cryptography doesn't inherently guarantee, the answer is availability. And remember, a signature alone proves origin and integrity, but never confidentiality unless you encrypt too. Question 36. In a block cipher, a lookup table maps input bit patterns to different output bit patterns, replacing one value with another. This component, known as an S-box, provides which of Shannon's two properties? Your options are: A. Confusion by obscuring the relationship between the key and the ciphertext. B. Diffusion by spreading plaintext influence across the output. C. Availability by keeping data reachable. D. Non-repudiation by binding an action to a signer. What's your answer? Commit to one before I continue. The correct answer is A. Confusion by obscuring the relationship between the key and the ciphertext. A is correct because substitution, implemented by an S-box, provides confusion, which obscures the relationship between the key and the ciphertext. The memory aid is that confusion equals substitution. B is wrong because diffusion is provided by transposition or permutation, not by a substitution box. Spreading plaintext influence is the job of a P-box. C is wrong because availability is not a property a substitution box provides and is not even a core cryptographic service. Shannon's two properties are confusion and diffusion. D is wrong because non-repudiation comes from digital signatures, not from a substitution component inside a cipher. It is unrelated to Shannon's confusion and diffusion. Substitution is one of the two primitive operations behind every cipher. It replaces each symbol of the plaintext with another symbol while leaving its position completely untouched. The classic example is the Caesar cipher, which shifts every letter a fixed distance in the alphabet. In modern ciphers, the same job is done by an S-box, a lookup table that swaps one chunk of bits for another, used inside ciphers like DS and AES. Inside a cipher round, a group of bits enters the S-box, and a scrambled group of bits comes out, with no simple arithmetic link between the two. Repeated across many rounds, this tangles the relationship between the key and the ciphertext beyond easy analysis. Substitution provides confusion, obscuring the relationship between key and ciphertext, while its partner, transposition, provides diffusion by spreading each symbol's influence across the output. Keeping this pairing straight is the key to avoiding a very common mix-up. Substitution changes what symbols are, not where they sit, and its job is to hide the connection between key and ciphertext. Together with transposition, it forms half the foundation of every modern cipher. Question 37. A block cipher includes a wiring pattern that shuffles the positions of bits without changing their values, spreading the influence of each plaintext bit across many output bits. This permutation component provides which Shannon property? Your options are A. Confusion, B. Confidentiality, C. Authentication, D. Diffusion. Pick one. Trust your gut. Here's your chance to test yourself. The correct answer is D. Diffusion. D is correct because transposition, implemented by a P-box, provides diffusion, which spreads each plain text symbol's influence across the ciphertext, so patterns vanish. The memory aid is that diffusion equals transposition or permutation. A is wrong because confusion is provided by substitution through S-boxes, not by a permutation that only moves bit positions. Confusion hides the key relationship rather than spreading plain text influence. B is wrong because confidentiality is an overall security service, not one of Shannon's two cipher design properties. The permutation specifically provides diffusion. C is wrong because authentication is a security service tied to certificates, signatures, and message authentication codes, not to bit permutation. It is not what a P-box provides. Transposition, also called permutation, is the second of the two primitive operations from which all ciphers are built. Instead of changing symbols like substitution does, it rearranges their positions, keeping every letter or bit but moving it to a new location. The historical archetype is the Spartan Scytale, which scrambled a message by winding parchment around a rod so the letters ended up in a new order. With none of the letters altered, only relocated, a columnar transposition, writing a message into a grid and reading it out differently, works the same way. In modern ciphers, this operation is carried out by a permutation box, or P-box, a fixed wiring pattern that routes each bit to a different output position. Where the Scytale moved letters, the P-box moves bits, working alongside substitution boxes inside block ciphers. Transposition provides diffusion, spreading each plain text bit's influence across many ciphertext bits, so that flipping one input bit ideally changes about half the output. Substitution, by contrast, provides confusion, hiding the relationship between key and ciphertext, and keeping these two pairings straight is essential. Remember, transposition changes positions while keeping symbols, embodied by the Scytale, columnar ciphers, and the modern P-box, and its job is diffusion, spreading each symbol's influence across the ciphertext to defeat statistical attacks. Question 38. Modern ciphers such as AES are built by alternating substitution and transposition layers and repeating them many times, with each repetition called a round. A cipher built this way, combining multiple operations in sequence, is given which name? Your options are A. A monoalphabetic cipher, B. A product cipher, C. A one-time pad, D. A codebook cipher. Which would you go with? Lock it in before the reveal. The correct answer is B. A product cipher. B is correct because a cipher that combines multiple operations in sequence, iterating substitution and transposition over many rounds, is called a product cipher. Both D's and E's are product ciphers. A is wrong because a monoalphabetic cipher uses a single fixed substitution alphabet and does not iterate alternating layers. It is a weak classical scheme, not a layered modern design. C is wrong because a one-time pad combines the message with a random key as long as the message and does not use rounds of substitution and transposition. It is a different construction entirely. D is wrong because a codebook cipher substitutes whole words from a codebook and is not built from iterated substitution and transposition rounds. It is not the layered design described. A single substitution or transposition alone makes a weak cipher, since each preserves clues an analyst can exploit. Modern cryptography's strength comes from combining these two primitives and repeating that combination over and over, an architecture called a product cipher. A product cipher applies substitution, then transposition, then more substitution and transposition, building up scrambling step by step. Each complete pass is called a round, and while one round provides only modest mixing, a dozen or more compound into a transformation that hopelessly tangles the relationship between plain text and ciphertext. Substitution layers supply confusion, obscuring the relationship between key and ciphertext, while transposition layers supply diffusion, spreading each symbol's influence across the whole output. Each round is driven by its own round key, generated by a key schedule that expands the main key, echoing the old polyalphabetic idea of varying the transformation as work proceeds. Picture a block of data entering round 1, substituted and permuted under the first round key, then emerging more scrambled and entering round 2 under a different key, and so on through every round. By the final round, a single input bit has influenced essentially all the output, leaving no pattern to grasp. This uses a Scytale structure, and AES uses a substitution permutation network, but both are product ciphers built from the same two ancient operations, driven by round keys and iterated many times. The cipher protecting the modern internet is simply substitution and transposition, combined, keyed, and repeated at enormous speed. Question 39. A tester flips a single bit of plain text and observes that roughly half of all the output bits change in an unpredictable way. This desirable property, which makes it useless to feed nearly identical inputs to learn about a cipher, is called what? Your options are A. The avalanche effect, B. The clipping level, C. The work factor, D. Perfect secrecy. Don't overthink it. Which one feels right? The correct answer is A. The avalanche effect. A is correct because the avalanche effect means a tiny change in the input produces a drastic, unpredictable change in the output, with about half the output bits flipping. It is the practical result of good diffusion. B is wrong because the clipping level is the number of failed login attempts allowed before lockout, not a property of how outputs change. It has nothing to do with bit changes in ciphertext. C is wrong because the work factor measures an attacker's effort to break a cipher, not the sensitivity of output bits to input changes. It is a different concept. D is wrong because perfect secrecy is the property of the one-time pad that ciphertext reveals nothing about plain text. It is not the same as a large output change from a one-bit input flip. The avalanche effect is a property every strong cipher and hash function should have. A tiny change in the input should cause a massive, unpredictable change in the output. Flip just one bit of plain text or key, and roughly half of all output bits flip in a scattered, unpredictable pattern. A minuscule cause produces an enormous scattered effect, denying attackers any pattern to study. This effect comes from diffusion, the repeated alternation of substitution and transposition across many rounds. Each round spreads a changed bit's influence a little further, until after enough rounds that single altered bit has cascaded across roughly half the entire output. This matters for both ciphers and hash functions. An attacker feeding in nearly identical inputs learns nothing, since the outputs look completely unrelated, and for hashes, it guarantees that even the smallest tampering announces itself through a completely different digest. The avalanche effect means a one-bit change in the input flips about half the output bits, the practical expression of good diffusion, and one of the clearest signs of a well-designed cryptographic transformation. Question 40. A student must match Shannon's two properties to the two primitive operations of a cipher. Which pairing is correct? Your options are A. Confusion comes from transposition and diffusion comes from substitution. B. Both confusion and diffusion come from substitution. C. Confusion comes from substitution and diffusion comes from transposition. D. Both confusion and diffusion come from transposition. Got a guess? Lock it in. The correct answer is C. Confusion comes from substitution and diffusion comes from transposition. C is correct because confusion is provided by substitution, which hides the key to ciphertext relationship, and diffusion is provided by transposition or permutation, which spreads plaintext influence. The memory aid is confusion equals substitution, diffusion equals transposition. A is wrong because this reverses the correct pairing. Confusion comes from substitution, not transposition, and diffusion comes from transposition, not substitution. B is wrong because diffusion does not come from substitution, it comes from transposition. Only confusion comes from substitution. D is wrong because confusion does not come from transposition, it comes from substitution. Only diffusion comes from transposition. Every strong cipher relies on two properties named by the founder of modern cryptographic theory, confusion and diffusion. Together, these two ideas form the conceptual heart of cipher design. Confusion makes the relationship between the key and the ciphertext tangled and obscure, so an attacker can't reason backward to the key. Diffusion spreads each plaintext symbol's influence across many ciphertext symbols, so patterns in the original message vanish. The two properties map directly onto two primitive operations. The S box performs substitution, delivering confusion, while the P box performs transposition, delivering diffusion. Confusion comes from substitution. Transposition delivers diffusion, and reversing this pairing is the classic mistake to avoid. Without both working together, a cipher leaves either the key exposed or plain text patterns intact for attackers to exploit. A product cipher combines both, alternating substitution and transposition over many rounds, to defeat the full range of statistical attacks. That's why modern ciphers are built with S boxes, P boxes, and repeated rounds working together. Question 41. An analyst intercepts a message encrypted with a single fixed substitution alphabet. Even though the cipher has roughly 400 septillion possible alphabets, the analyst breaks it quickly by counting how often each ciphertext letter appears, and matching the most common ones to letters such as E and T. Which attack is this? Your options are A. Brute force trying every alphabet, B. Frequency analysis, C. A birthday attack, D. Kerckhoffs examination. Which one is it? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is B. Frequency analysis. B is correct because frequency analysis exploits the fact that a fixed substitution preserves the language's letter frequencies. So matching common ciphertext letters to E, T, E, and so on breaks the cipher quickly. The enormous key space does not help because the statistics leak straight through. A is wrong because brute force trying every one of the astronomically many alphabets is infeasible and is not how monoalphabetic ciphers fall. The statistical structure makes brute force unnecessary. C is wrong because a birthday attack targets hash collisions, not single substitution letter frequencies. It is unrelated to breaking a monoalphabetic cipher. D is wrong because Kerckhoffs examination finds the key length of a polyalphabetic cipher, such as Visionaire, by spotting repeated sequences. A single fixed alphabet has no repeating keyword for Kerckhoffs to attack. Frequency analysis is the attack that broke monoalphabetic substitution ciphers and pushed cryptography towards stronger designs. It exploits a simple fact about language. Letters don't appear equally often. In English, E is the most common letter, followed by a familial group, T, A, O, N, S, H, and R. These frequencies stay stable and predictable across ordinary text, and that predictability becomes a weakness. A monoalphabetic cipher always maps the same plain text letter to the same ciphertext letter, because the mapping never changes. The frequency pattern passes straight through. The disguise changes the labels, but not the statistics. An analyst simply counts. The most frequent ciphertext letter is likely E, the next likely T or A. A common three-letter group is probably the, and pairs like the and he confirm the guesses letter by letter. It doesn't matter how astronomically large the key space is. Frequencies hand over the mapping regardless. That single flaw is why cryptography moved to polyalphabetic ciphers, which scatter the frequencies and deny analysts their stable counts. Question 42. A polyalphabetic cipher driven by a repeating keyword resisted attacks for centuries, but its keyword repeats at regular intervals, which attack exploits repeated ciphertext sequences to recover the keyword length, after which each column is solved as a simple shift cipher. Your options are A. Frequency analysis applied directly to the whole message. B. A meet-in-the-middle attack. C. A chosen plain text attack on an S box. D. Kosinski examination. Take a second. Which answer would you pick? The correct answer is D. Kosinski examination. D is correct because Kosinski examination finds repeated ciphertext sequences, and the distance between repeats is usually a multiple of the key length, which reveals that length. Once the length is known, the ciphertext splits into columns that are each a simple Caesar cipher. A is wrong because direct frequency analysis on the whole message fails against a polyalphabetic cipher because the changing alphabet flattens the frequencies. It only works once the message is split into columns by key length. B is wrong because A meet-in-the-middle attack targets layered encryption such as double encryption, not the keyword length of Visionaire. It is unrelated to repeated ciphertext sequences. C is wrong because A chosen plain text attack on an S box concerns modern block ciphers, not a keyword-driven classical cipher. The Visionaire weakness is its repeating keyword, attacked by Kosinski. The Visionaire cipher was called indecipherable because its repeating keyword scattered letter frequencies across many different shifts, hiding the patterns that simple ciphers betray. But the very keyword that powered the cipher was also its weakness. Because it repeats at a fixed interval, the message is really just a handful of simple shift ciphers, interleaved and reused in rotation, not one truly random alphabet. The Kosinski examination attacks this by finding repeated letter sequences in the ciphertext. The distance between repeats must be a multiple of the keyword length, so measuring those gaps reveals how long the keyword is. Once the keyword length is known, the ciphertext splits into columns, each one a simple shift cipher, crackable by ordinary frequency analysis. A statistical method called the index of coincidence can find that same length another way, but either path leads to the same collapse. A repeating key hides frequencies only until its period is discovered, after which the cipher falls apart piece by piece. That's why modern encryption avoids repeating key material altogether. Question 43. A communication channel must use the only cipher that is mathematically proven unbreakable, achieving perfect secrecy as long as 4 strict conditions hold. Which cipher is this? Your options are A. The one-time pad, also called the Vernam cipher. B. Triple Ds. C. The Caesar cipher. D. The Playfair cipher. Before I reveal it, which one do you think is right? The correct answer is A. The one-time pad, also called the Vernam cipher, A is correct, because the one-time pad, also called the Vernam cipher, is the only cipher with perfect secrecy, proven by Claude Shannon, provided the key is truly random, at least as long as the message, used only once and kept secret. No other practical cipher achieves unconditional security. B is wrong because triple DES is only computationally secure and can, in principle, be broken with enough resources. It does not provide the perfect secrecy of a one-time pad. C is wrong because the Caesar cipher is trivially broken by brute force or frequency analysis and is the opposite of unbreakable. It has no claim to perfect secrecy. D is wrong because the Playfair cipher encrypts letter pairs but is still breakable and offers no perfect secrecy. Only the one-time pad meets the 4 strict conditions for unconditional security. The one-time pad is the only cipher ever mathematically proven unbreakable. It descends from the Vernam cipher, which combined message characters with key characters using exclusive OR, and one key insight turned that simple idea into perfect secrecy. Perfect secrecy is a precise guarantee. The ciphertext reveals nothing about the plaintext beyond its length. Every possible plaintext remains equally likely, so unlike ordinary ciphers that are merely too expensive to break. The one-time pad is truly impossible to break. This strength comes from 4 strict conditions. The key must be truly random, at least as long as the message, used only once, and kept completely secret between both parties in advance. Meet all 4 and the cipher is unbreakable. Violate anyone and the guarantee collapses. The proof rests on combining a fresh, truly random key symbol with each plaintext symbol through exclusive OR. The result is a ciphertext symbol that is itself perfectly random, leaving no structure behind for an analyst to exploit. Reusing a key, the 2-time pad error, instantly destroys the guarantee by exposing a relationship between 2 plaintexts. And pseudo-random or 2 short keys fail the same way. The one-time pad proves perfect secrecy is possible, which is exactly why every other cipher only claims to be computationally secure. Question 44. A web forum hides spoilers using a shift cipher with a shift of 13, chosen because applying the same shift a second time returns the original text. This self-inverse special case of the Caesar cipher is commonly known as what? Your options are Atbash, B. the Vernam cipher, C. Rothra, D. the Hill cipher. What's your answer? Commit to one before I continue. The correct answer is C, Roth 13. C is correct because Roth 13 is the Caesar cipher with a shift of 13. And because 13 plus 13 equals 26, applying it twice returns the original, making it its own inverse. It is used to lightly obscure text such as spoilers, not for real security. A is wrong because Atbash reverses the alphabet, so A maps to Z, which is a different fixed monoalphabetic cipher, not a shift of 13. It is self-inverse too, but is not called Roth 13. B is wrong because the Vernam cipher combines the message with a key stream and is the basis of the one-time pad, not a shift of 13. It is unrelated to the spoiler hiding use described. D is wrong because the Hill cipher uses matrix multiplication over blocks of letters, not a simple shift of 13. It is a polygraphic algebraic cipher, not Roth 13. Roth 13 is the Caesar cipher with a shift of exactly 13 letters wrapping around the alphabet. It offers no real security, but it hides a neat mathematical trick worth understanding. The alphabet has 26 letters and 13 is exactly half of that. Shift a letter forward by 13 twice, and you've moved 26 places total, wrapping all the way around back to the start. That's why applying Rothi 13 twice restores the original text. The same operation encodes and decodes. Picture the alphabet arranged in a circle. Shifting 13 places lands you on a new letter. but shifting 13 more completes a full loop of 26 and returns you exactly where you began. Don't confuse ROT13 with atbash, another self-inverse cipher that reaches reversibility differently by reversing the alphabet so A becomes Z. Both undo themselves with a second application, but one is a shift and the other is a mirror. The key idea to remember: ROT13 is self-inverse because 13 is half of 26, making it perfect for lightly hiding spoilers, not for real security. Question 45. An analyst sees ciphertext whose letter frequencies exactly match normal English, yet the text is unreadable because the order looks scrambled. The intact frequencies but jumbled order are the signature of which kind of cipher? Your options are: A. A monoalphabetic substitution cipher, B. A transposition cipher, C. A polyalphabetic substitution cipher, D. A hash function. Pick one. Trust your gut. Here's your chance to test yourself. The correct answer is B, a transposition cipher. B is correct because a transposition cipher rearranges letter positions while keeping the same letters, so the language's letter frequencies are preserved even though the order is scrambled. Normal frequencies with jumbled order signal transposition, which is then attacked by anagramming. A is wrong because a monoalphabetic substitution changes letters, which shifts the frequencies onto different symbols rather than preserving them in place. Its signature is a displaced frequency pattern, not an intact one with scrambled order. C is wrong because a polyalphabetic cipher flattens letter frequencies by using changing alphabets, so the frequencies would not match normal English. That is the opposite of the intact frequency signature described. D is wrong because a hash function produces a fixed-length digest and is not reversible to readable text, so it does not preserve the letter frequencies of a message. It is not a cipher that scrambles order. Transposition ciphers leave a distinctive fingerprint that an analyst can spot at a glance. Because transposition only rearranges letters without changing them, the ciphertext contains exactly the same letters as the plain text, so natural letter frequencies are completely preserved. Normal frequencies paired with unreadable order point straight to transposition, because substitution would have shifted which letters carry the high frequencies, while transposition leaves the distribution untouched and only scrambles the arrangement. Once a transposition is recognized, it's attacked through anagramming. The analyst tries plausible orderings, hunts for common words and patterns, and reconstructs the original arrangement, aided by likely words or the probable shape of the scrambling grid. The classical era produced named ciphers worth knowing. The Playfair cipher encrypts letter pairs using a 5x5 keyword grid, flattening single letter frequencies, which made it valuable to the British military into the World Wars. The Hill cipher, the first built on algebraic matrix methods, multiplies letter blocks by a key matrix and is broken by an attacker who knows some plain text. The ADF-GVX cipher, a German field cipher, combined substitution with columnar transposition to become one of the strongest ciphers of its era. Question 46. A vendor argues that its encryption product is safe mainly because the inner workings of its algorithm are kept secret from the public. A cryptographer objects, citing a foundational principle from 1883. Which principle does the vendor's argument violate? Your options are: A. The avalanche effect, B. Shannon's diffusion property, C. Moore's law, D. Kerckhoffs' principle. Which would you go with? Lock it in before the reveal. The correct answer is D. Kerckhoffs' principle. D is correct because Kerckhoffs' principle holds that the security of a cryptosystem must depend only on the secrecy of the key, not the secrecy of the algorithm, which should be open to scrutiny. Relying on a hidden algorithm violates this principle. A is wrong because the avalanche effect describes how a 1-bit input change flips about half the output bits. It is unrelated to whether an algorithm should be public. B is wrong because Shannon's diffusion property concerns spreading plain text influence across ciphertext, not the secrecy of the algorithm. It does not address the vendor's argument. C is wrong because Moore's law concerns the exponential growth of computing power over time. It says nothing about keeping an algorithm secret. Kerckhoffs' principle is a foundational rule of cryptography. The security of a cryptosystem must depend only on the secrecy of the key, never on the secrecy of the algorithm. Everything except the key can be public knowledge without weakening the system. The founder of modern cryptographic theory restated this as a design assumption, often phrased as the enemy knows the system. Assume the adversary has the ciphertext and knows the algorithm completely, without the key. They should still gain nothing. Publishing the algorithm lets cryptographers worldwide probe it for weaknesses, and surviving that scrutiny earns real trust. Practically, this means the whole world can share a handful of vetted algorithms, with only the key needing fresh, guarded secrecy for each relationship. The opposite approach, called security through obscurity, hopes attackers stay ignorant of a hidden design. But history shows secret algorithms get reverse engineered or leaked. A vendor who hides their algorithm and claims that secrecy as their strength is a warning sign, not a reassurance. Keep the key secret and publish everything else. This is why modern algorithms are standardized in the open, and why any claim of strength through a hidden algorithm deserves deep suspicion. Question 47. A team hopes a system stays safe simply because attackers will not know how it works internally, rather than because of a protected key. What is this discredited approach called? Your options are A. Perfect secrecy, B. Confusion, C. Security through obscurity, D. Non-Repudiation. Don't overthink it. Which one feels right? The correct answer is C. Security through obscurity. C is correct because relying on attackers not knowing how a system works, rather than on a protected key, is called security through obscurity, and it is discredited because secret designs are eventually reverse engineered or leaked. It is the opposite of Kerckhoffs' principle. A is wrong because perfect secrecy is the unbreakable property of the one-time pad, not a reliance on hidden design. It is a rigorous mathematical guarantee, not obscurity. B is wrong because confusion is Shannon's property obscuring the key-to-ciphertext relationship inside a cipher, not a flawed reliance on secret design. The two are unrelated. D is wrong because non-repudiation prevents denial of an action through digital signatures and has nothing to do with hiding how a system works. It is a security service, not a design philosophy. Security through obscurity means trusting that attackers won't discover how your system works, instead of trusting a protected key. It hides the algorithm, the data format, or the mechanism, and hopes secrecy of design alone will keep everything safe. Design secrets are condemned for two reasons. They inevitably leak, whether reverse engineered from software, disassembled hardware, or exposed by an insider, and because hidden designs never receive the public scrutiny that catches serious flaws before real damage occurs. Once the hidden design is revealed, a system that depended on secrecy has nothing left protecting it, because the defense and the secret were the same thing all along. A well-designed system publishes its algorithm for the world to attack, and rests security only on a secret key, so exposing the design changes nothing. A system built on obscurity collapses the moment its one hidden secret is disclosed. The principle to remember is that obscurity is at best a thin extra layer, and at worst a dangerous illusion of safety. Real security keeps only the key secret and lets the algorithm face the world. Question 48. An administrator notices that a key length considered safe 20 years ago is now brute forceable. Citing the observation that computing power grows exponentially over time, what is the appropriate response for protecting data over its sensitive lifetime? Your options are: increase key lengths over time so the work factor stays infeasible. B. Keep key lengths fixed forever because hardware does not change. C. Reuse the same key across more systems to save effort. D. Switch from ciphers to encoding schemes. Got a guess? Lock it in. The correct answer is A. Increase key lengths over time so the work factor stays infeasible. A is correct because Moore's law means computing power keeps growing. So brute force attacks that are infeasible today become feasible later, which is why key lengths must increase over time. Data that must stay secret for years requires parameters strong enough to resist future, not just present, computing power. B is wrong because hardware capability does change and grows exponentially, so fixed key lengths become weaker over time. Keeping them fixed forever ignores the very trend Moore's law describes. C is wrong because reusing a key across more systems increases exposure and does nothing to counter rising computing power. It weakens security rather than preserving the work factor. D is wrong because encoding provides no secrecy because it needs no key. So switching to encoding would remove protection entirely. That is the opposite of a sound response. Moore's law is the observation that computing power grows exponentially over time, doubling at a steady rate every couple of years. That relentless doubling has serious consequences for how we choose cryptographic key lengths. Computing power doesn't grow by steady addition, it grows by repeated doubling, so the climb accelerates. Over a decade, that means dozens of times more power, and tasks once hopelessly slow become routine just a few years later. The data encryption standard is the textbook case. Its 56-bit key was comfortably secure in the late 1970s. But as computing power climbed year after year, that fixed key space stayed the same size until purpose-built hardware could crack it by the late 90s. It wasn't broken by clever math, just by the steady growth of raw computation. The practical response is to lengthen keys ahead of time, since each added bit doubles the key space, matching the same exponential lever attackers get from faster hardware. That's why symmetric keys now sit well above the old 56 bits, and asymmetric keys run to thousands of bits, with margin built in for data that must stay secret for years to come. Moore's law steadily erodes any fixed key length, so security holds only when key strength is judged against future capability and stays ahead of the doublings for as long as the data must remain protected. Question 49. Because strong encryption serves both ordinary citizens and hostile states, it is regulated like a technology with both civilian and military value. A multinational agreement established in 1996 coordinates export controls on such goods, including cryptography. What is this agreement called? Your options are A. The Geneva Convention, B. The Wassenaar Arrangement, C. The Kyoto Protocol, D. Kerckhoffs' Principle. Which one is it? Pause the video if you need more time. The correct answer is B. The Wassenaar Arrangement. B is correct because the Wassenaar Arrangement, established in 1996, is a multinational export control agreement covering conventional arms and dual-use goods, including cryptography. Member states coordinate their control lists, so publicly available cryptography can generally circulate among them. A is wrong because the Geneva Convention governs the conduct of war and the treatment of combatants and civilians, not export controls on cryptography. It is unrelated to dual-use technology trade. C is wrong because the Kyoto Protocol is an international agreement on greenhouse gas emissions, not on cryptographic exports. It has nothing to do with dual-use goods. D is wrong because Kerckhoffs' principle is a cryptographic design maxim about keeping the key secret, not a treaty on export controls. It is a principle, not an agreement among nations. Cryptography isn't just mathematics, it's also policy. The same encryption that protects a bank session could shield an adversary's battlefield communications, which is why governments regulate it like a controlled technology. A purely civilian technology needs little control, and a purely military one is restricted as a weapon. A dual-use technology sits in between, useful for everyday life and for warfare at the same time, and cryptography is the textbook example. In the United States, 2 regimes have governed this area. Stronger controls once treated cryptography as a munition, while most commercial cryptography today is handled as a dual-use item, with key length long used as a proxy for strength. The Wassenaar Arrangement, established in the mid-1990s, is a multinational agreement where member states coordinate export control lists covering conventional arms and dual-use goods, including cryptography, while letting publicly available algorithms circulate freely. Cryptography is a dual-use good, valuable for both civilian and military purposes, subject to export controls and to arrangements like Wassenaar, which coordinates nations. It is not itself a law or an algorithm. Question 50. A secure protocol uses slow public key cryptography only to exchange a one-time symmetric session key, then uses the fast symmetric key to encrypt the bulk data, and adds a hash to verify integrity. This widely used combination is known as which pattern? Your options are A pure symmetric cryptosystem, B. Security through obscurity, C. A one-time pad, D. A hybrid cryptosystem, also called a digital envelope. Take a second. Which answer would you pick? The correct answer is D. A hybrid cryptosystem, also called a digital envelope. D is correct because a hybrid cryptosystem, or digital envelope, uses asymmetric crypto to exchange a symmetric session key, then uses the fast symmetric key for bulk encryption, with hashing for integrity. This pattern underlies protocols such as TLS, PGP, and IPsec. A is wrong because a pure symmetric cryptosystem would not use public key cryptography to exchange the session key, yet the scenario explicitly does. The combination of both families is what defines a hybrid system. B is wrong because security through obscurity is a discredited reliance on secret design, not a method of combining cipher families. It is unrelated to the described key exchange plus bulk pattern. C is wrong because a one-time pad is a single classical cipher using a random key as long as the message, not a combination of asymmetric and symmetric crypto. It does not describe the hybrid pattern. Every cryptographic algorithm belongs to one of 3 families, and knowing these families tells you what an algorithm can and cannot do. Symmetric cryptography uses one shared secret key to both encrypt and decrypt. Asymmetric cryptography uses a linked public and private key pair. Hashing uses no key at all, producing a fixed-length fingerprint of data. Symmetric cryptography is fast and great for bulk data, but distributing the shared key is hard. Asymmetric cryptography solves key distribution and enables signatures, but is too slow for bulk work. Hashing provides integrity through a one-way fingerprint, and adding a secret key turns it into a message authentication code. Real systems combine all 3 in a hybrid cryptosystem. Asymmetric cryptography exchanges a one-time symmetric session key. Symmetric cryptography then encrypts the bulk data fast, and hashing with a signature verifies integrity and authenticity. This single architecture, asymmetric to set up, symmetric to do the work, and hashing to verify, underlies nearly every secure system, which is why classifying algorithms into their families matters so much. That brings today's Domain 1 review to a close. If you're looking for more practice, our website has you covered with hundreds of free questions and complete study guides ready to explore. No matter what topic you're working on, there's plenty to dive into. You'll find the link right down in the description, so check it out whenever you're ready to keep learning. Subscribe and stay tuned for the next part. Good luck on your exam.